Hi and welcome and good morning, everybody, and welcome from us here at live at the GCCM in Berlin at the Messaging Summit. Before we start, because we're going to talk about the messaging market today and tomorrow, all the trends and all the technological developments and services we have, and of course capitalizing on the API, not API. Right. So for this, I would like to introduce my senior panelists sitting next to me, starting with Jean. Jean, please.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm
Good to
fine.
be here. Great to see this event taking place. A lot of people moving around, so it's enjoyable to be here.
Okay,
Thank
cool. Thank you and welcome for being here. And of course, Jean is from BTS, ladies and gentlemen. And next to that, good old friend.
Hello. The need is more than 160. Yeah, I'm not going to say more.
No?
No.
Okay. And you're going to see him far more today live on stage. So welcome here to the session. So, and last but not least, and maybe most prominent while he sponsored this session, from iBasis live from Rome actually today. Ricardo, say a few words, please.
Hi to everyone. Hope you are having a great event. Unfortunately, I cannot be there, but I hope to be physically on the event tomorrow to say hello to everyone. And it's a pleasure to have prominent colleagues on this panel and to be here once more in GCCM.
Thank you so much. And you bet that you'll be there tomorrow, all right? Make sure. So, guys, we'll have a panel discussion here. So, but before we go into it, and we're going to discuss, let's say, all the pros and cons and the markets and whatever trends there are out there today and tomorrow. Ricardo, if I may invite you to do a very nice and keynote presentation with us and share your thoughts from my iBasis point of view. So we'll ask kindly to start the presentation, and please take it away, Ricardo.
Yeah, I think, let's say, this topic we are addressing today, the trends on messaging market, what can we expect for tomorrow and today, and the capitalizing on the APIs. I think it's a very interesting topic. And I think, again, my idea in these first minutes is just to throw some topics on the table and to, let's say, share some questions or some insights that iBasis has. And I think we will address most of the topics in our discussion afterwards. So if we can go to the next slide. I would just like to say very briefly to introduce iBasis. So we are actually, the first, or let's say, independent global operator, and it's a result of several acquisitions over the last years, which being the latest one, the Symphony on the IoT space, and we are a global provider, independent. And on the next slide, please. With let's say, with a 25 years experience on innovation, I think we started on the voice over IP space, and over the years we have grown and we have a global position, a global portfolio, and we are excited to be part of this ecosystem on the messaging and CPaaS, and that's why we sponsor this panel, and we want to contribute for this discussion, which is very interesting. If you can continue, please. So as I said, we have a global portfolio. I think probably today we will focus in more detail on the messaging side and cloud communications. But as I mentioned, iBasis is global with its core services on voice and also, let's say, roaming services with 4G and signaling. And when, let's say, entering a bit in the topic, I think, let's say, we saw, and you can move to the next slide, please. We had a very impressive acceleration, I would see, on with COVID and with let's say the pandemic. We noticed that, especially on the digital transformation, some things that were scheduled to happen in 10 years or in 5 years, they happen in 6 months. And so I think on a day-to-day, we see this acceleration, and this acceleration, from on the, let's say, mostly on the business messaging side, but also on the enterprise market. and the digital transformation is creating a lot of opportunities and challenges. And I think that's, again, this effect of acceleration is very noticeable. And I think, CPaaS, cloud communication, APIs is just one item of that acceleration. So, and I think we'd like to share with you guys what is our perception of those challenges and those opportunities. If we can move to the next slide. So I think that the first message we wanted to bring is, on the enterprise side, or let's say, how do you call it, on the source of the traffic, I think it's now clear to everyone that all the enterprises have some sort of digitalization or digital transformation strategy. Even if that strategy is not 100% clear, I think everyone realizes that customer engagement and the speed and the efficiency and the use of the technology is very critical. And and this insight that at least there is an awareness that this is an opportunity for the enterprises to get an efficient approach to communicate with their customers. And if we go to the next slide, I think that when we think on the drivers, it's very important that, again, cost is always important, and let's say new revenue streams, and of course operational efficiencies, but again, the customer experience and the interaction with customer comes on top of them, on top of the requirements, and in top of mind of the enterprises. And I think this is very important, again, to stress that the solutions that we provide to our customers will solve this problem. So this is the problem that the enterprises are trying to solve, and our mission as part of the ecosystem is to present solutions to the problems of our customers, and this is the problem that they want to address. And how to do it, that's something we will discuss on the next 30 minutes. But if you can go to the next slide. I think we are trying to address on the day-to-day with, let's say, a business messaging strategy rather than SMS. I think, SMS is a channel that, is majority used, is the biggest channel, is the old channel, is universal, ubiquitous, is easier to stay. But I think, it's also safe to say that now business messaging is more than just SMS, and there are other channels coming, and WhatsApp for Business, RCS, and we know RCS is there for a long time, but it's a new breath, Viber. So, and the way we position ourselves and the way we look at the market, right? Because we are, in the aggregation space, we are close to the operators, to the MNOs, and close to the enterprises. We can have a privileged position as many of the other players like iBasis. And if we look at on the source side, as I just mentioned, this driver of the business and the enterprises is to focus on customer engagement. And I think we are seeing a shift from the traditional two-factor authentication use case to P2A and conversational marketing. As I mentioned, the COVID increased digitalization, but the good news is that, according to our understanding, only a limited percentage of businesses use messaging channel to reach their customers. So there's a huge potential of growth. On the OTT side, that today represents the majority of the traffic, we see raising concerns with fraud, with instability of the cost structure, and it's a bit of pressure to find alternative channels. So that's probably also something we will address during the panel. On the termination side, I think the MNOs are trying to adapt to this new environment. So this is creating, not only for us, but also for the MNOs, creating new challenges and new opportunities. I think we see a trend on all the monetization topics. All the MNOs want to have a monetization project to install an SMS firewall, and they want to move to CPaaS. And I think that's the APIs discussion we are having today, I think it's also something that, at least on our perspective, the MNOs are trying to address it because they are the ones having a relationship today with their customer base. And this is bringing additional challenges for them. I would like to stress as well that when we talk about business messaging, it's a huge market, and it's a growing market. I think I shared some figures of the average or the forecasted market size is around $26.5 billion, which is huge. And I think the forecast of growth is there. We know that enterprises want to engage with their customers, and that's using SMS or business messaging. It's really a growing channel. If we can move quickly to the next slide, and I will go briefly to the slide. So I think what we try to explain is to deconstruct in a very simplistic way, and is what can CPaaS mean? Because CPaaS at the end is a buzzword. It's a set of APIs that are used for a set of use cases. Of course, if business messaging is growing, the forecast of CPaaS growth is there as well. So this is a tool or a way to address the same market, maybe with a bigger scope because it goes a bit beyond messaging, but definitely is the way the enterprises reach their customers. So it's also a growing market. And I think just for iBasis, in the next slide, please. Just to continue, please. So what happened in healthcare with during COVID with a lot of let's say telemedicine is an example. So and I think it's important to show examples that CPaaS is not much different from the existing service enhanced with technology and using the APIs to provide access to the core services, but with a different flavor, more easy to engage with the customer. If you move to the next slide, you can continue, please. Next slide. I will go through. So I think for me, this is a very interesting slide, and just again to convey the message that we are not changing completely the services we are rendering, or if you look at that on the MNO perspective, the services are already there. We are just using a different mean to provide access to them and enhance features. And this is, I think, a way, again, a simplistic way to look at it, but also a very pragmatic and down to earth. So it's not that CPaaS is something super complex, but it's using the current assets of the MNO, the current services, and trying to give them a new usage, additional features that can improve the users of that service and serve the purpose and solve the problem of the business. And that's a bit our view. I think you can continue the next slide. And it's pretty much this message. So today, the service already exists, and CPaaS or APIs are improving its users and giving it a more broad scope. You can continue, please. And again, this is applicable for a lot of verticals, a lot of use cases, and I think that is something that, again, for sure we will discuss in the next minutes. But this is, I think, what I would like to bring here is to say that this is not something let's say, there is a degree of complexity, there is a degree of let's say disruption, but it's, again, it's something that it's solving a problem, or it's helping to solve a problem, and it's leveraging on the existing assets. And we are just shifting the mean and moving to APIs instead of standard interconnections. But at the end, let's say, improving the use cases, but using the assets that are already there, the connectivity already there. And I think that's kind of covers my, so if you go to the next slide, I think it's basically iBasis has this solution as many other players in the ecosystem, and this is something ready to use, and again, to shorten the time to market of MNOs. and that's a bit our position. But I think that's pretty much the slight overview I wanted to make and to prepare your discussion and the next questions, Eric. Floor is to you.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And let's have it, even if we're not that many, but now, Ricardo, you did this presentation, which normally could take an hour. You did in 12.7 minutes. Congratulations on this one. And thank you.
Well, I can improve. It's supposed to be 10 minutes, right?
Well, it's all okay. Let me immediately join with the guys here live at the GCC in Berlin into the discussion. I mean, Ricardo, you give us, let's say, an overview of what do we see today and tomorrow, what the landscape is actually in messaging country, and especially when we look at utilizing and capitalizing on the APIs. So, Andreas, if I may ask you, from your point of view, how do you see the landscape? Just to set the basis.
Well, congratulations, Ricardo, for the presentation. It was really very nice. And I have to say that the big shift that happened in our industry, it's that what happens before the pandemic, we're talking about the application, we're talking about the MNOs, we're talking about providers. We didn't talk about the customer at all. And now the big shift is that we are talking about the customer, and the customer needs the one that is monetizing the SMS for all of us. And I'm really very happy because we finally reached the era that we are talking about the initial need of the messaging as well. So this is the big thing that happened the last 2 years in the industry, that we changed the point of view. The people that we do messaging, not only SMS, but also the OTT and the Viber and the WhatsApp and the RCS, we change our point of view and we're going through the customer point of view, which is the most important segment.
Andreas, do we understand it now, or did we finally woke up actually?
We woke up. We woke up because, you know, Eric, I've been in the enterprise business forever, and I used to scream in the panels that we have to think about what the customer needs, because the retail, it's the one that pays the bills, you know. And now finally we woke up, and of course the COVID, as it was said in the presentation, it was a very big, significant element for the digitalization of the companies, but also for macro.
Okay.
Well, I think if I may interject here, I think that, and thank you, Ricardo, as well. I mean, a couple of things that Ricardo mentioned, which are very important: value chain. You know, the market's evolving. You know, I agree that things are different maybe 3 years ago than today, but the technology is changing.
Yeah.
All right. That's why we at BTS, you know, we are a technology provider for enhancement of customer experience and connectivity. All right. We're using now what we're promoting both internally and externally. It has to do with analytics, AI interfacing, a lot of those aspects, because there's basically 3 elements, you know, in any communication, which has to do with reach, cost, and coverage. All right. So those are the key elements in whatever sector of the business you're in. All right. Value chain is very important. A lot of the MNOs are looking to go up the value chain, which means that the other individuals in the market have also need to jump into the value chain. If not, they will be left out.
They have no choice. They have no choice.
You know, so I think that the technology is evolving. The key point, of course, is customer focus, and that's why we find in SMS different fragmentation, because customers are using or finding different ways of how to communicate best with their own customers based on those elements: reach, coverage, and costs. All right, and I think that that is bringing, you know, and the providers, we need to be closer to the customer. We have to know what they want, and that's why moving forward is, okay, we need to be flexible. Our platforms have to be flexible. We need to know more or less the platforms have to give way to allow flexibility and new technology to be incorporated, because if not, there's a big cost into investing in platforms that are rigid and not able to adapt to the changes, you know. So but I do think that you know, the fact is that more and more. I think people have always been focused on customers. It just happens that it's more visible now.
All right. Okay. Now, thank you, Gene. Ricardo, just quickly coming back on your presentation, because you mentioned we saw your slide where where we say, okay, what is the A2P market now? It's or messaging market now is 25.6 on top of my head billion US. And there was another sentence to it, comma, but there is also the gray market, which is around 4 dot whatever billion, right?
Yes.
Now coming to the point, because if we see, and we talk a lot in these panels about, yeah, but the growth is there and the market is so big. What about the margins? What will, talking about trends and challenges in the messaging market, will we follow the voice market where we really, if I may say so, didn't do the best job in the world to kill each other and that there is hardly any margin anymore? Is that a trend as well? What do you see from your point of view, from a iBasis point of view?
Oh, let's say we see an increase of competition, more and more players jumping into the messaging arena, and that of course drives pressure on pricing. I think what the messaging market has, of course, it's growing, and in a growing market, this is always more easy to manage. But there's also, a more, let's say, mix of customers, and these customers, we talk about enterprise customers, we talk about OTTs, we talk about service providers, we talk about aggregators, MNOs. So the margin per segment or per type of customers is not exactly the same. And when we talk of global margin, it's the mix. I think probably in other more mature services, the segment is more clear, and the margin of wholesale has nothing to do with the margin of enterprise. Here in messaging, I think we are still in a bit blur situation where the different segments mix a bit, and that's, but I think it's unavoidable that there will be a pressure on margins because there is an increase of competition. And again, with the MNOs implementing monetization projects to try to monetize the termination, that will create also a pressure on the enterprise side, on the source side, and that will, unavoidable. I think it's something we will face, but I think the market is prepared.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gene.
I think the starting point is different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think you remember the days when you were with Orange and others. The margins were unbelievable.
Fantastic back then.
And now, I think the starting point is different. Those days of those expecting those type of margins are unrealistic in today's changing world. So I think from that perspective, I think that when you talk about numbers, billions up and billions down, who really has the crystal ball? Technology is moving so quickly that when I see a forecast of 5 years, I'm wondering, may look good in the presentation, but I doubt it's
Could be a balloon.
I think you're looking at 1-2 years is really real numbers. Anything beyond that is make believe and make the presentations look from that perspective. The interesting part of the SMS is, of course, margins aren't really going down. Actually, the latest statistics are prices have gone 20% in the last year. Okay, and that's why I think that in an SMS it's going to be fragmented, and you have other services which are going to be let's call it less expensive. And people are inventing ways of getting around the traditional SMS. But you have pin to speech, you got text to speech. There's so much movement going around, and of course you have what's really pretty popular now is flash calling. And how is that going to fit into the industry? Are MNOs accepting it or not going to accept it as a way of doing it? But of course, all those are elements of reducing costs on the SMS side. So, people will find a way, and customers will find a way, and software and fraudsters, everybody. The big now, of course, is the fraud. How much fraud can be controlled in SMS? There is some fraud that no system can control because it doesn't hit any system.
Oh, you're always behind.
That's right. So, the margins, we'll see. I think the development, the new technology developments may have an impact down the line, but there are new services coming out of it.
Mhm.
All right, which will bring whatever segment of margin, pertains to that segment.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure.
All right.
Well, I think that business messaging, in fact, we have experience for many years. However, the business messaging now is starting. That means for the next 2-3 years, maybe the margins are going to be really very fine. But the people, the companies, the industry that is entering the SMS is the voice industry. And we all know that. And we know how the voice industry ruined the margin voice. And now they complain about the margin because they kill each other. So I suppose that the next 5 years it's going to be the same thing with the business messaging because the same players are going to make the same tactics again. However, we have some brilliant future in front of us for the next 2-3 years. But yes, I think that they're going to make the same mistakes because I have seen that they started already in order to have the account, they're killing everything. And this is such a short-term strategy. I mean, it's sad, but it happens.
Yeah, but what Gene says, listen, we have actually a different pie now. In the voice, we had a simple voice. Voice was voice, right? Now with messaging, we have the CPaaS, and as Ricardo mentioned, we have the omni-channel, we have we have so many things, and CPaaS is so much more, and up to AI and then number intelligence and API, call it. So, Gene, what you're saying is, listen, there is still enough in there for the coming years to be, let's say, on the safe side with the margins. And if some trouble is coming, we still are clever enough because we have enough ways out and for new services, new products to bring on the market.
Adaptation.
Adaptation.
That's what it is.
All right.
Adapt to it.
Okay.
And, I think, but going back to the APIs, the APIs, as Ricardo ensuing in his presentation, is the driving force of growth. Everything is online, and anything connecting. APIs are all over. They're behind, the software developers. Everything on the back end is all APIs, and there's so many variations of APIs nowadays, and that will, progress and continue because this is technology just
Will
going
drive.
forward. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Well, going a bit into the APIs, Andreas, how and what can we expect from utilizing APIs in correlation to the new services on demand?
Well, I think that we have done a very good progress so far with the CPaaS, and I like the idea that Ricardo, he changed the CPaaS that says that it's a sum of
Did you see
APIs,
it?
which is really very nice because it's the truth. However, I believe, and I always believe, that we have to be a little bit, we have to move faster because new players are coming day by day in the industry, and we have, of course, I know that the CPaaS thing and this sum of APIs is something new, and all of the plans are trying to develop things, but imagine TikTok, okay, that we didn't know since 2 years ago. Is there any API for TikTok?
Mhm.
Is there any company that they have TikTok in the business messaging communication? I never heard so far. We have to be a bit fast. But yes, this is going to be a never-ending thing because new applications are going to come and new OTT are going to arrive, and it's going to expand. That's why we have to be fast.
Okay.
We have to move a bit faster.
Okay.
Now, when you mean we have to move faster, what does that mean in detail? Who has to move faster? The developers, the operators, the connectors, because the evolution is moving.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As you mentioned, APIs. It's a beautiful buzzword,
Yeah.
but it's been there. It's nothing new.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
They're just
Yeah.
different ways of APIs now.
Yeah.
All right, which much more sophisticated than before.
Yeah, it's a very nice question. Thank you for this. Let me tell you, look what happened with WhatsApp. It took almost 3 years for WhatsApp to decide what they're going to do with the business messaging. And after that, we have to wait the developers. Because the developers, they cannot move if WhatsApp is not arranged to say, guys, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do like this.
Mhm.
It's It takes time.
But,
Look what happened
but
with
they took time
RCS.
also, but they now have a big customer base.
Yeah.
So now they can go in knowing their big customer base,
Mhm,
and they come up with some type of solution,
mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
I think what will drive usage is clearly the user experience. Again, um, we are using CPaaS and we are putting the APIs to develop and to enhance the service. Again, maybe the starting point is the current use cases. You know, we have voice, we have messaging, but with an API and with a program CPaaS, we can, you know, schedule the voice call and then do the fallback for messaging or do text to speech. And this type of new interaction will unavoidably generate new use cases. So maybe in a year, we are talking about something that growth. So the current starting point is using connectivity, make it more easy to use. And then because this will generate a user experience, this will drive new use cases. That's our take.
Yeah, I mean, you also have, you know, the two-way communications coming up. You got the
And it's getting
P2A.
bigger and bigger,
Bigger.
day by
Absolutely.
day.
I mean, so, I mean, and there's movement, of course, we know the movement from voice messaging over to the, you know, messaging period, you know, that's happening. And of course, you know, again, it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about customer experience. It also has to be how close, we need to be close to the customer. How do they want to communicate with their customer base? All right, what are the forms, what channels are they using or they want to use to make their business more viable? And that's the bottom line, I think.
So how do you do this with BTS? And ladies and gentlemen, we prepared a lot of questions, but we just started talking, right? So, but how do you do this with BTS? Because I mean, and even you know, up to the strategy
No.
level and business model level. How do you
Well, you know, BTS.
how did you face it?
We got into the SMS business about 5 years ago.
Mhm.
All right. And it, you know, was moved along, but only in the last year and a half or so have we really put resources behind it. And so we started with using the third-party platform, and now we've decided to move ahead with our own platform.
Mhm.
So we're already migrating existing customers. Of course, you'll maintain both platforms for a while,
Sure.
but we find that having your own platform, of course, we have voice and SMS on the same platform now,
Mm.
which we believe it gives us more, a little more advantage, is more attractive because there's a lot of similarities between both sides. There are differences, of course, from an operation point of view, but there's quite a bit of similarity. So we're moving forward on that side because we're able to, if you have your own platform, you have much more flexibility and what your decisions are. You can plan it in the future. Again, adaptability, making that flexibility involved. So we're looking at that aspect. Of course, it goes back to what we're positioning on the technology side.
Mhm.
All right. And technology drives also the business.
Mhm.
Well, drives, it helps be more efficient. All right. And you optimize the resources that you currently have.
Mhm.
All right. So through the AI algorithms and again, you know, big data, we're able to help our own business
Mhm.
and also help our customers' business and our
Mhm.
partners' business.
And grow.
Well,
Because
so-
we
and
saw
that's
with
what-
you
so we're-
guys
we're throwing-
significant
we're-
growth. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's
Mhm.
really the angle that we're attacking with.
Okay. Ricardo, what do you
Yes.
think? But how in iBasis? I mean, you quickly shown us on your slides, and some slides were really fast. Even I really wanted to see those slides a bit longer. But I'll invite you next time in iBasis to do a far longer presentation because I think it's interesting enough. But how did it, how's your focus within iBasis? How did you do it? How did you transform? How did you looked at your to market strategy? I mean, in a nutshell, taking you.
Yeah. So I think, let's say, iBasis
How
is
do
a
you
25.
position yourself and your services to the customers?
I think on the messaging and CPaaS side, again, we have this close to the source, close to the termination, dual strategy. But historically, all the iBasis path was done in close cooperation with the MNOs. So we are traditionally more close to the termination side of the business. And on the CPaaS arena, I think our strategy is, we have a partnership with Mavenir, and we have a white label solution to enable the MNOs that are local in the market to go to their enterprise customers, because they have the relationship, and it's proven that a local company trusts their local operator, so that the MNO has a leverage. So our strategy on CPaaS is to partner with MNOs and to give them the tools, a white label solution ready with features ready to use, that they can go to the enterprise and do this, help the local enterprises to do the digital transformation. It's the same thing we are doing on the business messaging with the monetization support to the MNOs. So of course that we also, in the aggregation space, we are moving towards the source as well. But I think if I have to define a positioning and a short medium term strategy, we are more close to the MNOs, and trying to tailor-made solutions to solve and to give tools to the MNOs to go in the local markets and address these challenges with their local customers.
Okay, Andreas?
I have to mention this, that it's very important to understand that enterprise marketing starts locally. And every society has a different need, so we have to think of it. We don't talk like the SMS, that it's one technology that goes all around the place, it works the same way. Now it's different, we have to think of it. So I have only one piece of advice to give. Just because the future, the next 10 years, it seems very promising, this business messaging, marvelous thing, don't cannibalize it. This is what I have to say. Because there is a lot of money for everybody, it's growing there. If you see the Mobile Square researches, you will see that I don't know, the sky is the limit with this industry, and we have to be really very wise and very careful in order to keep it in a level, in order to have the more benefits that we can.
It's interesting because just recently, some statistics have shown that only about 5% of companies are using business messaging tools. So, I mean, there's a whole number of opportunities there, and all different vertical markets and new vertical markets that will be coming around. So, I mean, there's definitely something there. The key, Ricardo mentioned, partnership. You have to get the right partners into the right elements that you need the partnerships, and because you can't do it on your own. I mean, it's too much involved.
All right. Let's see if the audience, and welcome Florence to the panel. Any questions from you guys? I mean, you're so silent here we were only a few here, but you're so silent. Any questions for these gentlemen from your side? There you go. Always. I can always count on you. I can always count on you. Of course. I was like, ask.
Hi, my name is Ira Cohen. I'm from Smart. There was a little bit of talk about margins, about the shrinking margins. We actually aren't seeing that, but generally what's happened when markets reach that point where they see the shrinking market, or they're afraid of the markets going, then they look for what used to be called as added value, or value-added services that they can add. Do you think that we've promoted, I'm not talking about value-added, have we promoted properly the intrinsic value of what we're providing for our customers? Because I think that this has been you mentioned a few minutes ago, and we've been talking about this for a long time. We talked about customers now, but we haven't been talking about value. And since we've joined the industry, we've been talking about value.
We are very young to start talking about values. We'll have to wait a bit.
Are we promoting properly the intrinsic value of the services that we're providing for our customers? Because that's the way that you avoid shrinking markets.
Well, I think that everybody can do a better job. That's the start. All right. A lot of it has to do with the MNOs and how they're interfacing with their end users, right? Also, transporters and connectivity providers. That's part of the tools also to show, our MNOs and customer base value that those tools can bring to their end users. So that education process has to happen. Totally agree. I don't know if some people may be doing a better job than others, but as always, I'm sure we can do a much better job.
Also, I think it's redistribution of the value, because in certain scenarios, in certain use cases, the value was was not properly shared among all the stakeholders, right? You know, when I'm just giving you a simple example, with an OTT was using a gray route, the MNO was getting 0. So this is not a fair value distribution. So I think, you know, we have two extremes when the MNOs are, you know, setting a fire monetization project, and then they are overpricing the termination. That has an effect on the use case, but you know, at the same time, it cannot be for free. So I think if the use case generates a value because, you know, the enterprise customer or the OTT is using two-factor authentication to actually acquire a customer, he needs to pay the proper termination rate for that message. So I think it's all about finding the proper balance. And again, I think in the early stage of the market, these things fluctuate. And I think we are, you know, giving good steps, and with a bit of, I think was Andrea mentioning that, you know, with a bit of conscience that we have to have a long-term view, not to kill the business, and to keep it healthy for all the stakeholders. And I think we are doing a very good steps towards that direction. Of course, you know, we have to avoid the extremes, but I think, you know, all the market awareness that, you know, these panels, these sessions also create, I think this is you know, one input to raise awareness of, you know, and to help to find that balance. Because if it is healthy to everyone, it's sustainable for everyone, and you know, we can drive the growth, and at the end, we will be good for all the players in the ecosystem.
Thank you. Andreas, you wanted to answer on
I want to say
Ira's
something
question.
about this is very important. Who is training the end customer? The enterprise messaging provider is doing this very, very difficult job, and they spend a lot of money. We used to spend a lot of money to train the customers, and then we have something from the customer because the customer says that, you know, guys, I want to have this. Is it possible to have it? And then you go back to WhatsApp, to Viber, to the platform providers, and say, you know, guys, the added value. You know, guys, the customer wants now. It's not happening. I mean, we have to start hearing each other. We have to start hearing, because the one is going to promote the added value. It's not going to be the MNO. In fact, the MNO, he doesn't give a shit about it. It's going to be the enterprise providers, but they have to convince the marketeer for the added value, for the price. Because spending 3 million messaging per month, you understand how much money it is. The marketeer has to take care of his budget.
Mm-hmm.
But this is something that they don't care, because the MNO says that they're going to have the money anyway. Yeah. We have a lot of work to do, guys, still.
That's good. Okay, let's guys, looking at the clock, we need to do some closing statements. So, Gene, what do you see? I mean, you said nobody has the glass ball, but I'm still trying to tease you a little bit to tell us a bit about the glass ball. Well, what do you foresee? What do you have to look at? What's out there to come? What's your...
Well, I think the last point of value is very key. You know, I think that's going to, those who are able to adapt and be more flexible and be creative, and as mentioned, customized solutions, those will stick around. While the other ones who are just being very niche picking and don't bring any value, which normally are the ones who may be affecting the margins, all right, may be in this consolidation world. All right.
There's definitely bulk estimate. What's the ROI when it comes to?
Right. But I think, you know, we don't have a future. The key, I think, is to be close to the customer, no doubt, be able to have flexibility and adapt as quickly as possible to any movement in the market.
All right. Andreas, some closing words?
Well, closing words.
Positive ones, please.
Yes, I'm positive. I'm always positive. You know that. Yeah. But somebody has to say what happens.
No, facts are facts.
Okay.
Correct.
Good. We have to breathe. Whatever it happens in our industry, it's perfect, it's brilliant, it's promising. There is bread for everybody there. We have to breathe and not to cannibalize, and everything will happen.
Okay, thank you.
Positive enough?
Oh, that was so positive. Ricardo, first of all, I would like to thank you and thank iBasis for sponsoring this webinar session live here and for the great presentation. But please, your closing statement, please. What do we have to look out for? What's
I think it's a pleasure to be in the panel, and it's always surrounded by experts and close friends. So I think, let's say, for us, the message is we have a new opportunity to growth. So that we know that the market is growing, business message is growing, APIs and CPaaS are a relevant tool to be used to stimulate and enhance that growth. And that's, let's say, our focus is to support our customers to deliver that growth. Because if that growth will happen, will be good for all the stakeholders in the messaging business.
all right? Thank you so much. So, with those closing words, again, Ricardo, thank you so much. Thank you for your brilliant presentation and keynote.
Thank you, guys.
To share
It was
with
a
us.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, iBasis. Thank you, Andreas. Always
Thank
a
you,
pleasure
guys.
having a bit of a helicopter view from not an operator SP aggregator point of view.
Yeah.
And Gene, of course, an honor having you here. Well, and the next us.
It was a
So
nice
thank you so
panel.
much.
Thank you, Ricardo.
And I have to compliment actually as my closing statement, actually my panelists, because we prepared always questions before, and we put them actually in the trash bin because we talked about it spontaneously, and this is how a panel session actually should be out. So I want to thank you guys for
Thank you,
for
Rick.
the challenging questions actually which were out there, but having this great conversation with the experts. So stay safe, stay cool, enjoy Berlin, enjoy everybody out there,
And let's make some business.
and let's do some business. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Ricardo,
Bye.
ciao. See you tomorrow night.
Yes. Bye-bye.